call the planning board meeting to order.
Zoning board.
Zoning
Oh,
board.
the other one, yeah, I'm sorry.
Wrong week.
Sorry. Richard, in Roland's absence, you'll be a voting member tonight?
Sure.
Thank you.
Would love to.
Do a roll call, please.
In attendance this evening, we have Richard Body, Jane LaRoche,
Here.
Michael Dellavecchia, Michael Foote,
Here.
Marcia Hayward,
Here.
Tyler Carmichael, and myself, Scott Pelchat. I will be your recording secretary this evening.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair?
There was one thing on the minutes that I noticed. It was the second item. Number 11, Merrimack Street.
Okay.
It just said, yes, the structure existed, requested use, and it said, yes, it will, but it doesn't say how we voted.
Okay, I have the NOA, I'll just mirror the two together.
Thank you. So, we'll accept those minutes. Seek a motion for that, please.
I make a motion to accept the minutes as amended.
Thank you.
I will second.
Thank you. All in favor? And opposed? Okay. Next on the agenda, we have no extensions?
Winter Street.
The Winter Street application will need to be untabled and then voted on.
We have another one on Winter Street also. Are they together?
Weren't they the same?
It's the same one from last week,
Right.
last month.
There's not two tonight.
All right. So, we have Southeast Keyser Court.
No?
No,
Sorry.
Winter
No.
Street.
Are
Winter
you
Street.
looking at last week's drafts?
Where the hell am I here?
Here, you should have this right in front of you. Tells you
You
the
can drag
order.
these two chairs down if people need to sit.
Right there.
Where's the nice one that I had when I came in? Oh, it is nice. Lovely, lovely, lovely. Okay.
Nice to see you, Mr.
We have 2426 Winter Street, looking for a density application. Please come up, folks. How do you do?
Good,
Tell us
how are
we
you?
can help you out.
Yes, so we were here about a month ago, previously seeking the special permit to allow for multifamily on the property, which you guys approved last time. And then we were also seeking the density bonus, and we had a lot of questions about the parking situation. Since the last hearing, we've done our best to do our due diligence. We met with Scott on site during that week as well. We physically took some cars and parked them in the drive to make sure that they could physically fit. We remeasured, and we came to a similar conclusion that we have the adequate space, depth and width for the number of parking spaces that we need. So we have 7 on site per the 4.5 that's required by the zoning.
Do you have a drawing?
Yes,
Of
I
those
submitted
7?
that to Savannah about a month
I'd like to see
ago.
how you've got seven parking spots on there.
Okay.
So there's also pictures, we didn't have 7 cars, but we parked a truck, an SUV, and then we measured so you could see that there's an additional room for 1 on one side, then the same truck and the SUV on the other side with,
Tandem parking.
Correct.
Yes, yeah.
And we also had some conversations with Tyler in the planning department to confirm that there's nothing in the bylaw that states tandem is not permissive.
I don't have the drawing in the zoning file, it's probably in the planning file, because that's when they would have submitted it for the CUP. I can go downstairs and try to find it.
No, I don't wanna hold things up, but all I know is that for 3 units, you've gotta have 5 spaces. You're saying you've got 7. I can only picture 4.
Okay.
With
I
tandem
can give you my
parking.
iPad if I have it right here if that's
Can I
helpful.
see the drawing, please?
yeah, we went out.
Taking the map, our minimum width is 9'6", I believe, and I forget the full dimension on that left driveway, but divided by the 19, it is just over 4 spaces as a result of the math.
4 spaces.
Correct.
Yeah.
On the left side. On the right side, we have enough for the other.
I was also hearing Tyler mention off-site parking.
Right. So we submitted a CUP to planning to pursue that as needed, and they kind of rejected it and said we don't need to submit that because we have adequate parking on the site.
So what happened is they did submit it. We had the conversation with them, which is where they pointed out that they had enough spots on site. That's when we
Oh.
determined that the zoning ordinance doesn't require tandem parking. However, if it is determined when they go through planning board that they need to fill out a CUP, we can certainly go that route. But at this time, we don't think one is needed. But it is an option on the table if needed.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you want a reminder as to the situation in the house, or do you just want to talk about the parking?
That was the only thing that
Okay.
was a hang-up for me
Yeah.
last time, was the parking. I don't know about the rest of the board.
I'm satisfied with everything.
And the new rule is coming in the first of the year also.
Doesn't mean the city's gonna adopt it. You mean the state?
So what's gonna happen is the state's passed a law that starting January 1, we will be required to reduce our parking requirements to 1 parking spot per housing unit,
Okay,
for the most part. If it's a multifamily dwelling and there's more than 10 two-bedroom units in the dwelling, then we can go up to 1.5 units per two-bedroom unit.
okay.
Now, that doesn't take place until January 1. We have not adopted anything yet for that.
But we are required to, aren't we?
At that time.
We wouldn't necessarily be required to adopt something, we should, so that way we match, but either way, state law will take precedence over
So
what our local zoning
basically,
ordinance
we're
says.
required to adopt that new density.
Yeah,
But we already have the 7, which already meets
Correct.
the current anyway, so that,
Right. So, okay, fellas, you can have a seat. Are there any neighbors that would like to speak for or against this application? Or any residents of Laconia could speak? Seeing none, discussion amongst the board?
It's fine. It's good.
I was out there today, and looks like they're doing a great job on that home. It's using
it's a
quality materials.
It's a tight lot, but the math works. And if it doesn't, then the planning board will pick up on it.
So, that being said, any other questions from the applicants? No? None?
Now, if they've been able to present their ability to meet the parking as it currently is, then certainly wouldn't have anything.
Very
against it.
good. So, I'll look for a motion to accept.
I got it. I make a motion to accept variance 2025008 for 2426 Winter Street. Granting of the variance would not be contrary to the public interest. The variance, granting the variance is within the spirit of the ordinance. Granting the variance would do substantial justice because it does fix a previous oversight. There's no evidence whether the property values will be increased or decreased. There are no special hardships, and the proposed use is a reasonable one.
Very good, Richard, thank you. Second?
I'll
Anybody?
second.
Thank you, Jane. Any further discussion? All in favor? Unanimous.
Good luck, boys.
Good luck, fellas. Keep the good work up.
thank you.
Next, we have a variance for 42 Centenary Avenue. Centenary?
I had a hard time with that one, too.
Centenary. How do you do, sir? State your name for the record, please.
My name is Brian Beaupre, I'm the owner.
And I'm Mark Lawrence, I'm the general contractor. Can I pass you guys out a folder? So you can see what we're talking about?
I love pictures.
That's amazing.
It becomes
Put a
evidence
lot of
to,
effort into this.
present it.
Collect these back, you'll probably need them.
Wow.
Thank you.
Thank you. Perfect, thank you.
Okay, I think by passing these out and you'll have the pictures to follow, it's gonna be a lot easier. What we're looking to do, if you look on the very first cover, the house is right there with the dark roof. That's number 42. We're looking to get a variance on the back. If you see in that picture, there's a parking pad out back, and then there's 2 small buildings, a shed and a bump out, which is a utility building. We tore down the utility building, and we tore down the whole house. and we're putting up a brand-new house. What we're looking to do is come out in the back 12 feet just on the second floor. So we maintain that whole back for parking. If you have smaller cars, you could fit 3 there. Regular sized cars, you're gonna be able to fit 2, where we didn't have that parking before. If you look at tab number 1, it says neighborhood layout. You see where number 42 is, and the little bump out in the back that is part of the building. It was until we tore it down, but that was a utility room. So that was stopping it from having decent parking. So what we're looking to do is just extend out with the second floor only, 12 feet. Now, when we measured from the building to the property line in the town's map, it shows 16 feet, and we're looking to go 12. When we did the survey, which will be on page, let's see, Surveyor's Plot Plan, tab 2, and you each have a big copy if you want to look at it inside the front cover. It's a full version that's to scale, the 1 inch equals a foot. But if you look at the little diagram I shrunk down for you, you can see where that concrete pad is, and we had measured 16 feet to there. The property line after being surveyed is actually 1.5 feet beyond that. So we have 17.5 feet where we thought we had 16. Also in the front, we're set back further than the neighbor's house. The neighbor's house, the porch is out almost 4 feet beyond. So what we're looking to do is just a second floor bump out. And if you look now at tab, let's go to tab 3, please. You see the neighborhood layout again. Number 42 actually has 37 on there, and then 42 is near it, so you can see which one it is. The other houses, left and right of it, all the way down the street and across the street and everywhere, are right onto the property lines. So we're not asking to go any further than anyone else has. We're still leaving 5.5 feet from the building to the property line, just on the second floor. It'll be in the air. To be able to make it a 3-bedroom home. So if we look now at tab 5, let's go right to tab 4, please. Tab 4, I put a basic layout in there. Sorry they came out kind of light. You have to squint to see them. The one on the right is the existing footprint, just the way the building sits, and if you look to the left, I did a diagram of the foundation, how it would be extended out just underground for the supports of the building. That will be all concrete in the back for parking, but you can see where the 12 feet goes out. Now that's just for the floor plan, for the plot plan, for the footprint.
Are you extending towards margin?
Yes, yes, towards margin. Okay, on page 6, tab 6, you can see the regular footprint on the right again, the existing house, and then on the left, how it would stick out just on the second floor for that extra bedroom in the back. Then again, if you go to tab 7, it's showing very basic footprint on the right that is on the tax map, which is on page 8. You can see that layout again. Tax map shows the breakdown with the porch and the utility room. And we drew it in there just to show you the footprint again. And slide to the left, you see the new one with the second floor extension out. And where it says 4 feet to the edge of the road, it's now 5 since we had it surveyed. If you want to see the exact layout, the big print I put in your folder is from the surveyor, and that goes right to 1 inch equals a foot, so you can really see that we gained that extra 1.5 feet. So that's what we're looking to do. We're looking to bump out just the second floor, not encroaching on anybody on the sides or the front. We're just going out the back, and we're still gonna have 5.5 feet to the property line, where the other neighbors on both sides in the back across the street, they're all right out to the city property line. Yeah, it's easier to see that big one. If you have any questions, just let me know. I could point it out for you.
So what is your setback from margin going to be?
On the first floor, it's gonna be 17 and a half feet. The second floor is gonna bump out 12 feet into that 17 and a half. It's just a second floor bump out.
Not bad idea.
Get out there.
Like quarters, that's for sure.
That's a way to get more home, still have some parking.
Yeah, that was the big point of it. Try to get a little bit more space without ruining the parking, because there isn't any parking over there to speak of.
Will you have, emergency exit from up there?
It's gonna have the staircase down. We're having egress windows in every bedroom, you know, to meet code 5.26 square feet. It's all gonna be all up to date, it's all fire code. It's gonna be, smoke detectors in every bedroom and hallways, and
Am I bad for not cruising the neighborhood, but is the house already gone?
we took it down today. So it's a big pile of wood there, but
What year was that, Bill?
1880,
Oh, my goodness.
Time for an upgrade, maybe?
just a little.
Okay. All right, good presentation, Mark, thank you.
Oh, thanks.
Good job. I'll ask you to have a seat right
Sure.
now, and I'll ask if there's any residents, neighbors
Thank you, guys.
that would like to speak for or against this application to come up now, please. No takers again. Discussion amongst the board. I like the idea of that neighborhood getting new homes. I mean, 1880 is time for a new home, and I think the idea of the second floor overhang gives you still have parking, and it gives you a little more square footage in the home, so I'm not opposed to this at all. I don't know how everybody else feels,
I
Every
think it's just-
house in the neighborhood is pre-existing and non-conforming,
right?
every single
Yeah.
one.
it's a good
Everyone has
solution.
issues moving out to the property line. Question I have is Margin a city road?
I don't know that off the top of my head. I believe
Don't believe it is.
it's private, but
Can we be a little more definitive than I believe?
yeah, looking it up now.
Okay, perfect, thank you. I was just looking on GIS and it was unclear.
It didn't say it. Okay. Trying to pull up our zoning map. 'cause I
Google Maps
believe-
has street view, I don't know if that means anything. That was a joke. Yeah, so I'm good with it.
Let's see here.
Anytime rebuilding any of those structures is a good idea.
Maps.
It's inevitable.
It's gonna look nice.
What's that?
It's inevitable.
Well, yeah, one way or the other, right?
Eventually, the beaver house falls down.
What is the concern about the street behind it being dirt?
Um,
Because you wanna know if it's maintained by the city, or if it's one of the ones like,
Abandoned.
not so much abandoned, it's definitely not abandoned.
Well, my question is there, has been and will be used for parking, and,
No, they don't park
Is
on
it
it, cause
Margin
there's too much
Avenue?
traffic.
well, what I'm saying is they're creating parking space underneath the overhead. And would if that's going to be their primary parking, does the fire department, you know, cause that road is like here, it's like, and so with that structure being out this far, does the fire department have a problem with that? So if it's a city road, that's already been addressed, so that's my question. But again, either way, I'm happy with giving the variance, and planning will pick up on that part of it. If the fire department has a problem with the encroachment into the space, then planning will flag that.
Was hoping our zoning map would say, because it does list some private roads. Does not have one of those listed. Does not have Margin or Centenary as being private, but I'm pretty sure they are. I can follow up on that. I just don't know of any other.
Actually, planning will take care of it. I'm fine with the variance as it is. And planning will pick up on that. If the fire department, if emergency service has an issue with the road and the proximity of the new structure to the road, they're gonna pick up on that. So for our purposes on the zoning board, I'm fine with that.
I'll make a motion, Mike, if you want.
Certainly.
I make a motion to grant a variance from Article 7, Section 235-35B to allow for the construction of a second-floor rear overhang with encroachment into the setback. Evidence being, number one, that the request does not alter the character of the neighborhood because the house is still maintaining its same footprint. Number two, if it is not changing the essential character of the neighborhood, then the spirit of the ordinance is observed, so number two is met. Number three, substantial justice. The granting of the overhang will make the property more usable, and there is no benefit to the public to be gained if we did not grant this variance. Number four, there is no evidence pro or con with regards to property values. And number five, given the hardship of the lot being very narrow and everything, this is a proposal is a very reasonable use of the property. So therefore, I would grant the variance.
Thank you, Marcia. Anybody second?
I will second that.
Thank you, Mike Foot. And any further discussion? I think it's good for the neighborhood and will be benefit to all. All in favor? Opposed? None. Very good. Enjoy your new home.
Thank you.
All right, moving right along. 30 Church Street is seeking special exception for short-term lodging. Hello, sir.
Hi there.
State your name, please.
My name's Phil Mastrocola. So my wife and I have owned a property in Laconia for the past 25 years or so. On a recent trip to the library to grab some reading books, we noticed that 30 Church Street was for sale. So we had always wanted to own a large historic home. So we went to go take a look, and we absolutely fell in love with the property. We also have a fairly large family. We have 5 kids and a daughter-in-law, and hopefully we'll get some additional daughter-in-laws in the coming years. So this will be a great property for all of us to sort of gather into one place. In speaking to the current owners, we learned that they actually, when they're not occupying the property, they lease it out for short-term rentals. So we were hoping to do the same thing. They use a professional local management team for the rentals, and they're very happy with it. So the way I looked at it is these folks spent a lot of money restoring this home. They put their heart and soul into it. If they trusted this company with short-term rentals, they must be doing a good job. So what we're looking to do is basically extend the short-term use to us as the new owners. The city has already permitted short-term use for this property for the past year and a half, and we're just looking to transfer that over to us. We plan on using the same local professional management team to help us with the short-term rentals. In addition, what we found is due to the historic nature of this property and also the experience of the current owner, this particular property attracts a higher level of tenant that would bring economic benefits to the entire downtown community. All the local shops, restaurants, and even the theater will receive an economic benefit from the continued use of this property as a short-term rental. So for that reason, we're asking for a special exception.
Very good. Any
Are
questions?
you planning on living in the property with
So-
your family?
So we're gonna use it essentially the same way the current owners use it. When they need to occupy it, they'll occupy it. So this is gonna be a second home for us. We already have a property in Laconia that we occupied for 25 years. It's a townhouse. It's a little on the small side. We've made it work over the years, but it's always been difficult as the family is gotten larger to house us all in one place. And this is that perfect home. Like I said, we've always, we're hoping to buy a large historic home, and this fits the bill. And as far as short-term rentals, the biggest competition is gonna be my kids, because they're already booking weekends on their own.
Very good.
So-
Tyler, let me ask you,
Mhm.
since it's already approved for short-term rental, doesn't that go with the property?
No, it's the owner.
They changes hands, they have to reapply.
And I don't remember
Believe so.
discussing this for a short-term rental. How
It
does
was
that?
approved by the prior director,
Oh, I love that stuff.
because the owner now came in under the guise of owner occupied.
That's right, it was under the guise of owner occupied, and this is not gonna be owner occupied.
Yes, so in that instance, it would need to have
It
the
would
special
have to-
exception.
Yeah,
Right.
okay.
Right. Any more questions for, is it Phil? Mr. Matrula? You got plenty of parking.
That's for sure. Don't have to worry about that.
Get some community input, then we can talk.
Mr. Chair, one more thing.
Yes.
The past ownership, past year and a half, 0 complaints on the property.
Good to know. Okay, Mr. Mastrocola,
Yes.
have a seat for a moment, sir, and we'll ask if there's any neighbors or residents that would like to speak for or against this project. Special application, I should say.
Exceptions.
Special exception.
None, no takers. That being said, we'll discussion amongst the board.
Simple.
Yeah, it's downtown location, it's perfect for it.
I thought it would make a great bed and
It is
breakfast.
a gorgeous
Yeah, that's
home.
what I always thought.
Always thought it was perfect for that.
Well,
And to have somebody take,
perhaps Filippo could start whipping up some nice omelets and
Yeah, great breakfast.
move right in. So I don't have any issues with the short-term rental there. Any further discussion? Seek a motion?
People, no one spoke
I'll
for
do
or
it.
against.
nobody.
No,
No one did.
No.
everybody's waiting for something else, I guess.
I'll make a motion, Mike, if you want to grant this.
Thank you,
I was
Marcia.
going to.
I make a motion to grant a special exception, Article 7, Section 235-41M, and the criteria for this special exception, which is listed under Section 235-70C, subcolon 2, states that the use is authorized, and yes, it is authorized in our ordinance, so it meets that. Number 2, the request will not increase demand of municipal services. I can't see how it would do that. So I don't think it will increase any services. Any special provisions, we're not planning on adding any special provisions to this request. It will not create any hazards of health or safety to the welfare of the public. In fact, I think it's just gonna enhance our downtown area. And the request use meets either the practice has been in effect with the prior owner, so therefore we know that it's been reasonable without any problems from the prior owner's perspective, and that this would be a benefit to the community because we are hoping to attract people to our downtown area. So
Thank you.
for those reasons, I say that we grant it.
Thank you, Marcia. We have a motion?
I will second.
Thank you, Jane. Any further discussion? I'm all for it. All in favor? No opposed. Very good, Filippo. Enjoy your endeavor. Thank you. Okay, next up is Hillcroft Avenue, seeking a special exception for short-term lodging. Hello, sir, please come up.
Hello.
Your name?
Anthony Shedd.
Tell us how we can help you.
Okay, so, I'm looking for a special exemption because I won't be able to occupy it as often as we plan to in the future because my wife's still a teacher back in Pennsylvania. And, even though I can work remotely, it's gonna be tough for me to be up here for 150 days a year to, do the minimum for owner occupied. The property, I can go through the,
Please do.
you guys have everything there, but I'll go through just the question and answer for what it needs. Okay, The use request is specifically authorized in chapter, which it is. I'm looking for short-term rental without restrictions, which is a use authorized in the chapter for properties owned commercial, resort, or residential shorefront. And this property is a shorefront residence. It just happened to be zoned in a rural residential zone in Pickerel Cove. The requested use will not increase the demand for municipal services. This property is connected to town sewer, has 4 to 6 spots per off-street parking, and the property is also on a private road, which we pay to maintain. As such, it should not increase any municipal services. Any special provisions for the use set forth in this chapter are fulfilled, so we do plan to bring it up to code. It needs a little bit of work, quite a bit of work, so we'll do that and get it inspected before use. The requested use will not create hazards to health, safety, and general welfare. This use will not create hazards to health, safety, or general welfare. The property will be marketed to kind of smaller groups. It's a smaller house. It's only 700 to 1,000 square feet. We will be submitting an application to do some work in the basement through the zoning board to make it a little bit larger, but for the most part, it's about 1,300 square feet. So it's perfect with families with small children, anyone that's disabled, and that's why we're looking at this. We both have disabled parents, and this house has stair lifts and access down to the water via a boat ramp on the property. So if anything, it should increase the safety of the community by offering waterfront access to those with disabilities that may not have been able to do so safely previously. As far as the request meeting one of the 2 criteria, I'll just summarize the very end, but in summary, those benefits to the community should include handicap access options for renters, which is very limited in lakefronts. We've been renting up here our whole lives, and we have yet to find one that has handicap access to the lake and to the house between both floors. Property will be brought up to code every 2 years to maintain this exemption. It will increase obvious revenue and taxes paid to Laconia from the short-term rentals. It should increase revenue and taxes paid to Laconia from the property improvements and the increase in square footage of livable space. It should increase contribution to the local tourism industry through all seasons. This has, it's fully insulated, has 4 sources of heat, possibly 5. They were a little crazy with that. So it's a year-round residence, and so it'll also increase use of the property during the ski season. It should also increase contributions to the small businesses and sole proprietors for property management, as mentioned by the last person that came up here, as well as home improvement and general contractors. Shorter term, this allows those who have never kind of experienced New Hampshire to come up here, learn about New Hampshire, and give back to the community. Longer term, it provides my family an opportunity to permanently reside in a lakefront property. And until then, we would need this short-term application to be approved for it to do so.
Very good, Anthony. Any questions for Anthony before he takes a seat? Go ahead, sir, have a seat, and I will ask if there's any neighbors or residents that would like to speak for or against this matter. Not many takers. All right. Please.
For Anthony, I'm curious, do you offer any other amenities as an attraction to your short-term rental other than what is provided for on your property?
Other amenities such as like tourism-based amenities,
Neighborhood
fishing.
amenities.
Not sure I follow the question.
Like if there's like a park or
court or
a beach
something
or pickleball courts, something like that, that goes with the property as like part of the HOA or something.
Yeah, there is a HOA, a public beach, or private beach, part of the HOA.
I believe nearby there.
It's the Paugus Bay Beach Association.
Is it on the bay side of the railroad tracks, the beach?
It is.
August Bayside?
Yeah.
And so is that offered as a part of this, or is that August Bay Beach Association intended for private properties? And would this bring in untended extra recreationers to those beaches, that beach?
Well, that's something, it does state in the homeowners association that your guests are also permitted to, as long as you provide them with the parking permit, but it wasn't
Where's the
our
parking?
intent. Right there on the beach, there's parking there.
What beach again?
It's the Pogus Bay Beach Association. I can get you the address.
I think there's a little gazebo right there.
Has there been a gazebo before? I really not.
No, I don't think there's nothing, they just got it back from the city, I believe, last year, or earlier this year. They're planning to do some additional work, but we weren't planning to even offer that, but that's an option for them. We have
I
waterfront
think
access.
Probably what I heard was some of the rub about not offering that.
Yeah,
You know, as long as it's tied directly to your property
yeah,
is the best implied you could do,
yeah. I mean,
I would imagine.
as long as there's no rules against it, we would obviously want to offer. It's not critical for me to be able to offer. I have waterfront property right
That's what
there.
I'm saying.
Yeah, yeah. But we would obviously offer it if the homeowners association allows for it, which I do believe they do. I just haven't met with them yet. We just closed on the property yesterday.
Very good.
I would suggest due diligence.
Okay, thank you.
Very good, Anthony. No neighbors want to speak about it, so, I don't see a problem
Who
with
would,
it at
I
all.
would have to ask who's gonna be the contact and the provider of services for it?
Is that
Right,
something,
you need someone who's in the area to be able to,
but that's not anything that we're responsible for in the zoning board.
But I can answer the question either way. So my mother lives in New Hampton, and my uncle will be the one on call for any questions. We'll be hiring a local property management company as well.
Very good, Anthony.
Yep.
Thank you.
You could always put that in as a provision, because that's one of the criteria that you can add provisions if you wanted to.
It's gonna stay up here for a little bit longer.
Not a bad idea.
Get your exercise
tell.
today.
Yeah.
Are we speaking amongst ourselves now?
Yes.
Okay. Is that required, that they have a person? I don't ever remember seeing
It's
that.
not
written anywhere.
required, but it's suggested. And when they get the application, they put an emergency number on there that somebody's supposed to be able to respond to. Am I correct, Tyler?
I believe we've come
I know for
across
special
this
events we have
before.
emergency. Do we have an emergency contact on our short-term lodging?
On the short-term lodging for City of Laconia, we have 3 numbers to call in the event. One is DPW, police, and then zoning and planning for any complaint-driven items. There's no, unless they have an agency working for them, there's no to-the-minute contact.
And there is no requirement under the special exception section of the zoning ordinance
Well,
for
that's
that
the
property.
point that I'm making. I
so-
mean, even here at the zoning board, I mean, I suppose we can ask the question, but it's not anything that we can ask or enforce. To me, it's a moot
Right.
point.
I just remember it as being one of the requirements when we first started talking about
Okay,
short-term
fair point. So, no.
lodging, that's why.
Question, Tyler, this is a
Mhm.
private road,
Mhm.
yes, and does the city of Laconia make a difference for a short-term lodging on a private? Are there any distinctions on a private road or a city-approved road?
Not for short-term lodging,
Fair
no.
point. And lastly, I don't remember if he said this or not, but does this HOA approve of short-term, other short-term lodging permits in this community now or on this road?
That I don't have an answer for.
Okay.
Yeah.
But if he were to take our approval back and his HOA were to say no,
Okay,
Yeah,
That's
the,
fine.
the HOA would then rule in that situation.
so I'm good with this. Yep.
Very good.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. So, I'm all for it. I'll seek a motion.
I'll do this one. I make a motion to accept or approve special exception to a 25011, 186 Croft Hill Road for a short-term lodging permit. The use is specifically authorized in this chapter with exception. The requested use will not increase demand for city services. The special provisions are set forth, and the applicant has given evidence and intent to comply. The requested use will not create unnecessary health or safety hazards, and the request does meet one of the last 2 required criteria, in that the applicant has demonstrated intent to provide accessible lodging here in the city. I'm complete.
Thank you. We have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Jane. Any further discussion? It's a shoreline district?
It's actually an RR2.
Yeah,
It
it's actually in
is,
the
but-
RR1.
RR1.
That was by
yeah,
mistake.
Yeah.
You know, it's a beach property and the use is appropriate. I'm sure he will run it in a due diligence manner. So, all in favor? Opposed? None. Very good, Anthony. You are good to go.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All righty. Next on the agenda is White Oaks. Seeking an application for a power generating facility.
If it's all right with you, I'd like to set up one of the easels.
Good evening, fellas.
Good evening.
How much electricity are you gonna make?
5 megawatts AC.
You know, everybody, talking solar megawatts, what does 5 megawatts do? How many homes would that be able to run? I'm curious.
Like about 1,200
Wow.
for the
Amazing.
system. Yep. So good evening. My name's Kevin Corbett. I'm with Rewild Renewables. This is Sean Pierce with Colliers Engineering. I'll be brief, and then I'm going to turn it over to Sean to just go through the layout of the project and see if you guys have any questions.
One question first, could you, who do you represent?
Rewild.
Just like you said that really fast.
Yeah, Rewild Renewables represent the applicant, White Oaks Road Solar LLC.
So Rewild?
Yep.
R-E-W-I-L-D?
Correct.
Is there a hyphen in there?
No.
Some more questions, but go ahead.
So we are a New Hampshire-based solar company out of Portsmouth, New Hampshire. We primarily operate in this type of project, ground mounts. We do some rooftop projects, but primarily we're developing projects of this scale. So as I mentioned, this is a 5 megawatt solar project off White Oak Road, obviously. As I mentioned, 5 megawatts is equivalent to 1,200 homes or 1,400 cars, basically, the offset of carbon emissions. This property is 108 acres. We're not developing the entire property. There's a lot of wetlands on the property. So the footprint of the solar project is about 21 acres out of that. And there is some tree clearing outside the perimeter of the fenced-in area. So the total cleared area is about 36 acres. So there's still about 73 acres left on the property that are remaining untouched. Our projects, obviously a lot of people bring up the fact that we're clearing trees, and it's not ideal, but unfortunately sometimes we do have to do that. What we do on all of our projects, that we incorporate pollinator grass seed mixes in. So even though we're clearing trees, we're creating a different habitat for different types of species to able to thrive on the project after it's constructed. This project is completely fenced in. It's monitored 24/7 off-site, so there's no staff on site once the project's built. It's all remotely monitored. If there's any issues, people get notified. Yeah, I mean, I think, this is a good project for the neighborhood. It's passive, it's environmentally conscious, there's no noise, no traffic. Like I mentioned, no on-site staff. It doesn't require sewer, water, police, fire, school burdens. And yeah, I think that's about it. If Sean, you want to go through the project a little bit more?
Sure, all three places. Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yes.
I just wanted to go through the RSA real quick for land use boards. If there is a direct personal or pecuniary interest in the outcome, it's not just that the board members should recuse themselves from a vote, but they should not sit on the board during the hearing as well.
Oh, I see.
So,
Okay.
apologies, I just read that, I wanted to make sure,
Okay.
so. But you can sit
So
in the
do I need-
audience,
I
though.
need to,
I would, yep, just to be safe.
I'm recusing myself temporarily from the meeting.
Sorry about that, Richard.
Sorry, I just want to double check. I appreciate it.
Make you feel like
All right.
chopped liver.
So as Kevin mentioned, my name's Sean Pearson with Colliers Engineering Design. We are doing the survey and the engineering on the project. It is a 108-acre parcel. The developed area is about 20 and a half acres. And the property resides in 3 different zones: the RR1 zone, the RR2 zone, and the AV zone. Or the AI zone, sorry. The AI zone is everything on the northwest side of the power lines. And so you can see about half the project actually is in allowed use for this site. So,
Pardon me, AI, what's that, airport?
Airport industrial.
and I actually have
All right.
a different visual for this. It's a little hard to see. So we have the overall property on an aerial image, so you can see the amount that we're developing in terms of this wooded area and this wetland area. There's actually about 50 acres of the 108 acres are wetlands on this property. We are only impacting 5% of those wetlands, and of that 5%, the majority of that is temporary, meaning it'll be cleared but not grubbed and will revegetate over time. So that clearing is for shading purposes, so it's obviously, relying on the sun to produce energy. So that clearing is minimized, but also there's a need for some clearing in that wetland area. We've minimized that to the practical extent possible. There's an existing access road that enters the property. There is about, I think 500 feet of that is, we'll call it a developed road that enters the property, and the rest of it is more undeveloped, but it does exist. It has been historically used, is through a wetland, and so what we've done is we've tried to use as much of that existing impacted corridor as possible until we have our closest exit out of the wetlands to get out there, again, to minimize impact, to get to this back portion of the array. So if I look at this other sheet here, I've highlighted the different zoning here on this sheet. So again, this is your AI zone and your RR1 zone border right there, and then you have your RR2 and RR1 zone border right here. So you can see this whole portion of this array is all a permitted use. We're seeking a special exception for this portion of the
Very good.
And here it is again with the highlighted lines on the survey. You can see the large wetland areas in the topography and these areas of upland that we're looking to develop for the project.
How much impact is your road going to have, and what is the construction of your road?
The road is going to be a gravel construction, so I don't have the exact numbers for the road impact amounts on this. That's part of our different application. We'll be going through the TRC and the Concom.
How high do you have to elevate your road above the wetlands that you're going through?
To mitigate
What's your grade going to be?
probably have a 2-foot swale along either side of the access road to mitigate the stormwater, and that's not all fill being brought in. Some of it is being cut out to again manage the stormwater flowing along that road.
What is the timeline to complete the project?
I mean, if we got all of our approvals and permits in hand, we're in a study with Eversource right now to get permission to connect to the grid. I guess I'll bring that up too. We are proposing to connect to the transmission line that runs through the property, not out at the street. So it's been in with Eversource for over a year now, but we're expecting to get that study started with them soon. Once construction starts, it's a 6 to 8 month process. Most of the work is done when the racking and modules are being installed, which gets done pretty quickly. Besides that, it's not too many people, workers on site. So it sort of starts off slow with the tree clearing and the site work, and then once the electricians come in, they get their work done, and then it's sort of final cleanup and inspections.
And for those that aren't familiar with solar array construction, this is ground mount, so it's a racking system. There's posts that come in contact with the ground, but the panels do not. So while the state considers the panels to be impervious, there isn't this massive sheet of parking lot essentially. There's areas in between that are going to be vegetated throughout the site.
How big is this proposed area to the west here? How many, what's square footage on that?
It's about 10 acres, let's say.
About 10 acres?
Yep. It's about half the project.
And how many panels are in that 10 acres?
I don't have that number off the top of my head.
A guesstimate is fine.
Yeah, there's probably 6,000 or so.
Will this be seen from White Oaks Road? It seems like it's kinda in there.
Right, exactly. There'll be significant wooded buffer between any of the properties. We can do visual sims if that was something that was desired as part of the planning board process and everything there. Sometimes it's requested. In this case, it probably wouldn't be worthwhile because you wouldn't be able to see anything but trees. Typically, we do them for the road. We'll take before and after photos, and it would still be wooded from that perspective.
Do you keep an office on site?
Nope.
Or,
During construction, there's an office trailer for workers, but once construction is done, nobody's on site, there's no office.
You say it's going to be enclosed with a perimeter fence. What type of fence will you be constructing?
So, we typically like to use an agricultural type of fence, which is either wooden or steel posts, and it's like a thin mesh that has different size openings, and we typically flip it upside down so the bigger openings are at the bottom to let wildlife pass through and get in and out of there. Is typically we do a lot of chain link fence as well, but.
in this here, if there's fence around both sides of this project, in the center where the wetlands are, that's still, wildlife can still pass in between
Yep.
there, right? It's
Yep.
not inhibited by a 7-foot
Correct. Yep.
That's what I was-
barbed wire fence.
Yeah,
we
you
don't,
can,
we don't
They
use
still
barbed
walk
wire either,
around.
but yep.
you can see the fence on these plans. It's about, let's say, a 15-foot offset from the panels, and everything else isn't going to be fenced in.
How far in off of White Oaks are you gonna be in?
The access road's 2,400 feet, but it's not a straight shot, so we'll call it 2,000 feet.
Think are you talking to like the first panels? Is that?
The first panel's about 150 feet would be the closest point. This is, actually, no, that's about 400 feet right there. It's, we'll call it 300 feet. I'm not sure the exact dimension.
Saturday's sun.
I let him speak for himself when he stands up.
One question is, it says fixed tilt panels. That means they don't change angles for the sun at all? They stay in one location?
Yep.
Does snow collect on them?
If there's a lot of snow, it will, if it piles up on the bottom, it will a little bit, but generally no.
But
it melts.
there's enough tilt to them that the
Yeah.
snow slides off? All right. Very good. Any other questions for these guys?
How do you prevent it from being sabotaged?
Well, we have a fence.
I know, but I mean, do
Is
you
it electric?
experience, yeah,
No.
do you experience that with
Good
other
for the
projects that,
Generally not when it's operational. We do sometimes during construction, there's theft of wire and things like that,
but not when it's in operation? You
yes.
haven't had problems?
Yeah, I mean, we've had issues with kids like throwing stuff at the bottles and balls and rocks, but generally people don't go in. There's warning signs all over the fence that's required by the National Electric Code that should warn people, but I guess you can't prevent, if somebody wants to get in there, I'm sure they could if they wanted to, unfortunately.
And you said that you plan your connection to be right there where the power lines already go right through? You do
Correct. Yep.
have some sort of station there that
Yeah, it's just,
tied you to
yeah, there'll be a couple poles coming off. There's a recloser that shuts the power on and off to the system if the utility needs to do that, and then it transitions to a transformer.
Very good. Any other questions?
I just have a question. I mean, I was asking about the fence because I was concerned about, there's a lot of wildlife there, so the wildlife won't be impacted at all from what you plan on putting in there?
No, I mean, I think there's plenty of room to get around. It's not like we're fencing in the entire property there, so each individual array is fenced
Two
in.
10-acre sites, basically.
Right. I mean,
Yeah.
there's another 10-acre area here in between the two arrays that anything could pass through.
Good.
Very good.
Out of, okay, I do have a question. Out of the rest of that, is not being utilized for the arrays. So we're talking maybe another 70 acres.
It's about 70 acres that won't be touched, 73 acres.
Is that in current use? Would that be in current use?
Yes, yeah. No, just.
I'm not sure, actually. I don't think the property is in current
See,
use.
well, that's what I'm asking
Yeah,
here.
I can't
In it,
remember off the
You
top.
know, you have 70 acres, you need over 10. That does allow for some access through, obviously not onto the fenced or signed sites, but just if someone were wandering through the swamp, it happens. You know, is that access, it's also a tax break,
Right.
just,
Yeah, we're leasing the land, so we don't own the property itself. So,
now what is the Delaware, where's the incorporation from Delaware?
that's just where the LLC, so each time we have a project, we create an LLC for the project, so
You work
all
out
the
of
permits,
Delaware?
we don't work on, no, it's just formed, and the company's formed out of Delaware, which is pretty common.
Rewild is Portsmouth-based.
Yeah.
How does this work with leasing property and not owning it and
You
doing
can
a
do that.
project? I know, but I know you can do it, but it's like, what if something changes?
Well, the approval would go with the property, so I mean, if the property owner wanted to have somebody else come in and do it, they could, or they could just change the use to something else they'd wanna do with it.
Wow.
How long is your lease intended to be?
It is an initial 25 years with, so up to 35 years.
How long do the panels last?
They say 35 years, so.
I'd also caveat that too, that if the board granted the special exception, it would only be good for 2 years until they received their planning board approval. So if something happened between now and their planning board approval and they decided not to go through with it, they'd have that 2 years from the date that you guys approve it to exercise that. And if they didn't, then they'd have to come
Start
back and
all
get a new
over.
one. Yep. So,
Very good. Kevin and Sean, I'll ask you to take a seat, and I'll ask
All right, thank you.
if there's any neighbors that would like to speak about this special exception. Does anybody would like to talk about the solar array? Come on up, folks. Please state your name for the record.
Joanne Bonacorsi.
Tom Bonacorsi.
Okay, first of all, there's a few things that I need to dispute. They said that they would actually be able to run about 1,200 homes. We've researched this since we got the notice, and the actual homes that would be utilized would be about 500. The paper states that they are going with 108 acres. Now we're hearing it's not 108 acres. I do have a few questions for the board that I'm hoping that they'll be able to clear for me today. Has an environmental study been performed on this property?
yes, one has been done.
One has been done. Is it public knowledge?
It will be when it goes to planning board, and we do have the application for the public to come and view at the planning department downstairs in the basement.
Okay. Does it include the impact of wildlife, rainwater, runoff, soil erosion?
It does, yep.
It includes all that. Does it have a cost-benefit analysis, a pro forma, being done to include the cost of the environment?
Off the top of my head, I don't know. It might be included in there.
Okay, I would really like an answer to that. And we've already hit the power line thing. Will there be actual transformers on site, batteries, or other hazardous material? They say that this will be unmanned. We all know we have a huge homeless issue. We have homeless people that live on our road. There is no doubt in my mind that one homeless or group of homeless will climb that fence to find a warm place to hibernate. And
Underneath
what
the-
warmer
underneath the
place
panels?
is underneath the panels?
Oh, okay.
They
That is
generate
a
a lot of heat.
A lot of heat. Furthermore, the Daily Sun said that there would be a number of specific criteria that would have to be met. I'm really curious about what those criteria would be.
Marcia, I think,
It's
can
on,
help you with that.
well, it's on page 134. There's 8 of them that are here. Do you want me to go down through the 8?
As long as it's available to the public, I can.
Yeah, you can go online and look up your zoning ordinances.
Perfect.
And it's
Okay.
under Article 11, and it's page 134.
Perfect.
Section, subsection lowercase b
Okay,
are the 8 criteria.
perfect, thank you.
Also, I would just like to go on record saying, I know the owner of the property is Mr. Ori Ron, who's a major developer in Boston, Massachusetts. And I have nothing but the utmost respect for the man. The work that he has done is exceptional, as well as Mr. Corbett here. He has held this property for almost 30 years and his legacy is one of preservation and protection. He has protected this property. Why all of a sudden do we need this sudden change of paradigm to develop it and destroy it and develop it? I mean, this is a habitat for God knows how many animals and whatever that live out there. I mean,
That we get to see daily.
that we get to see. We live there. We are part of the environment. The environment is part of us. When you strip this land, you're stripping our soul. Don't do this. I beg you, please don't do this.
And-
I don't have all the science and all the numbers that, there's some people behind us that do know the science and do know the numbers, and they'll be able to speak a lot more intelligently about this than I can. But I just have to let you know, as longtime residents of the area, how we feel. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Bennett.
We appreciate it.
Thank you, folks. Hello, young man. Please tell us your name.
Hi, I'm Alex Day. So I actually go to summer camp, not that far. I go to Prescott Farms. It's not that far away from where this solar farm would be. And I have a couple questions about that. So at my summer camp, we see like a lot of wild turkeys around, and it's pretty fun to like. They have a club during it where you can go like find the wild turkeys, and like they have a binocular thing and a little anyway. So that's really fun. And so would the natural habitat of the turkeys be harmed in any way?
Mr. Day, maybe I can speak to that. And then I have a follow-up question for you. The turkeys will be able to wander at will. They can fly over a 7-foot fence if they need to. They'll be able to go through the wetlands. Does Prescott Farm use solar energy to mitigate, offset their energy needs?
Yes, they do.
And is it clean?
Yeah.
And you have turkeys
Mhm.
and bobcat?
Mhm.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very good, Alex. Thank you for coming up.
Thank you.
there, how are you? So, my name is Mary Smith. I am actually going to speak on behalf of my parents who live on White Oaks Road. Not direct abutters, but just down the street. I grew up on this road, and there is a ton of wildlife, just as she spoke. And while I can understand that they can sit there and they can talk about, well, it won't do this impact and it won't have a negative effect, but nobody knows, right? So you are essentially taking a chance, and I'm not sure that that's a good enough reason to do it. This property, I'm sure there's other allowable uses that wouldn't require a special exception. I do question who's benefiting. So the person that owns the real estate, not a Laconia resident, not even a New Hampshire resident. I went onto their website, and it talks about how the benefits of solar energy, it's not New Hampshire, it's not Laconia, certainly. It says, we can try to reduce your electricity costs by pairing you with one of our community solar farms miles away. So we're talking about putting in something that is going to potentially have a negative impact. And again, I did some research, and it says that, let me see, where's my information? Says, solar farms can negatively impact wildlife in several ways, including habitat loss. They require clearing large areas of land, which destroys the natural habitats of animals. Lake effect. Birds can mistake the reflective surfaces of large solar panels for lakes and collide with them, which can cause injury or death. Fragmentation of habitats. Solar farms can fragment habitats, which can affect the movement of species, their hiding places, and their food availability. Fencing. Permeable fencing can allow federally protected animals to wander onto the site, which could lead to fines for developers. And then it talks on, it says, yes, there are positives, but do they outweigh the negative? I'm not sure they do. I also wanted to take note that I did a search of solar farms in the state of New Hampshire. So there's one in Jaffrey. It's on a landfill, a former landfill. There is one in Derry. It's part of the New Hampshire Electric Corp, so they're benefiting from it. There's one in Manchester, a landfill. There's one in Derry as well, a landfill. Then there's one in Merrimack that's on a business. So the people that are benefiting from this, they're either having it on their property or they're using land that is not usable. Landfills. I mean, no one wants to live there. No one wants to be there. It's a landfill. This property has other uses that are allowed. I'm not saying he shouldn't be able to do stuff like that, but I don't think this is the proper use of it. There's too many people that object to it. They don't want to see it, and I don't think there's any guarantee that you're not going to do harm to the wildlife. You can't tell me that that's not going to impact it. You can't tell me that the deer that go through there are not going to be impacted, and just because there's a hole that they can get through the fence, does that mean there's not going to be animals injured? Does that mean it's not going to impact negatively? Until someone can say 100% to me.
Shoot the little brown deer, that it's not going to impact the little brown deer?
You know what? That's an allowed use, right? People have the ability to hunt on their property. I'm not saying that they can't do it. What I'm telling you is you have a decision to make. Are you going to allow something when there's other uses for a person that doesn't live in the city and for people that are not going to benefit it but are going to have to deal with it?
You do recognize that there is a project on White Oaks Road moving forward that is 49 houses, also having to deal, it's not so far from this,
I'm familiar with it.
right? There is also just off from Magnum Drive, City of Laconia, dump site,
That has solar,
a solar panel
right?
project that is currently being undertaken, previously passing approval.
Right. What does the subdivision, though, have to do with it? I'm curious.
Well, where are the people going to get their power if it's not right there?
So where is it?
They're not gonna get
No,
it from
seriously,
Jack.
where is it? Who is benefiting from this power? Because I didn't hear them say, I did not hear them say Laconia is benefiting.
Benefiting from it.
I'm sorry.
Selling it.
Is Laconia benefiting from it? Do you know something I don't know?
That would be a good question. I would ask the nice people behind you. Not.
I'm not
now,
gonna ask
Not
the
in
nice-
that forum. I'll ask.
All I'm saying is that you guys have the ability to either say yes or no to something. And I would hope that you would take into account the fact that you have someone who's not even here. He owns this land, he's not even here, and that might not be an issue for you. But he has no impact whatsoever, and he's not gonna be there to deal with this. He's gonna benefit from it because the other thing is on the application, I believe the time frame says perpetual, or perpetuity, not 20, not 30 years, forever. So again, you guys are going to make a decision that is going to be there potentially forever.
Mary, let me ask, would you rather see 50 homes go in there?
I guess it depends on how those homes are and what the requirements are. I don't think the homes would have as negative effect as a solar farm. And I get it that there are plenty of people that are for solar farms, and that's fine. I'm not here to argue what benefits there. I'm simply pointing out they're not all good. And just because it can be done is not a good enough reason to make sure it is done. There's other things you need to take into consideration.
Yeah, like Michael said, you put up a lot of homes, you take down a lot of trees, you put in a lot of pavement, and that's gonna displace a whole lot more animals than this project is gonna.
Well, that you think, right? I mean, again, there's no proof to that.
Well,
You honestly
pavement,
can't say there's
down
proof to that.
trees,
And I would like to add, so what benefit is the city gonna see?
We'll ask that question.
Oh, so nobody knows.
Well,
Well, it wouldn't be that negative.
it's a
Well,
tax
you say
benefit.
that, exactly. I mean, so it's strictly taxes that you're gonna be pulling in?
Unless you wanna pay more on
The
yours.
electricity's not
I
ours.
think I pay enough. What I'm saying is that,
What about the old surf coaster?
Please.
One at a time.
what I'm saying is, you're looking at this benefit to the city for the detriment of the neighborhood? To the detriment of all the people that live on the street? That, by the way, this street is a desirable place to live because of what it offers. It still is. I agree. I do believe that this is a desirable place, or else, you know what? There wouldn't be people building the cluster subdivisions. There wouldn't be people wanting to be on that street. So, you know what? It might be removed. It might have a tree line. It doesn't change the fact it's there. I've also read that there are noises. I don't know if that's true, but I've read that there are certain noises that can be produced, not to mention the fact that what happens to all of those panels? They don't know what to do with them. So where are they gonna go? That we are just saying, yes, come and build, come and do what you want. And again, I know you don't have the answers. I'm simply throwing out that these are the concerns and these are the things that should be thought of before you agree to something that truly, a tax revenue, that's great. But so many houses, that would be a tax revenue. Not just from one place, but multiple places. So,
Thank you, Ms.
that is all I have to say.
Thank you for coming up.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else who would like to speak?
I actually do have an additive.
Please come back. We'll give you another chance.
You have two pieces of property. You have the state school that's wide open. Nobody knows what to do with that. Nobody knows what to do with that. This man has a lot of money. Let the wildlife be the wildlife. Put homes and your solar panels on the state school. That way the solar panels can energize those homes. This town would make off profits for that, which I know this is all about taxes and profits. What about the old surf coaster? That is nothing but pavement and an eyesore to everyone.
We don't own it, we can't do anything about it.
Got it. But once again, I'm going to say, this man has got money to buy whomever he'd like out or buy whatever he would like. How about put them down on the surf coaster? How about it? How about putting it over at the
What,
state
just
school?
kind of course, ma'am?
How about it?
Ma'am, you were
we
addressing
watched
the
the,
board.
Just saying. Think about it, guys. You're hurting the wildlife.
Okay, we'll close the public hearing at this
Mike,
time.
you're gonna give them, I would give
a little rebuttal.
a rebuttal, an
Please.
opportunity to rebut
Yeah.
the points
Kevin and
brought up.
Sean, you wanna come up and answer a few questions for us, please?
Sure.
I see there's some opposition from the neighbors. My personal belief is that they're never gonna know those panels are in there. You can't see them. They're how many feet in from the road? It's only two 10-acre sites out of 100 acres. It's not, tearing up paradise and putting in a parking lot. So, can you embellish a little bit more of how the negative impact to wildlife is really not effective?
Yeah, I mean,
And our community benefit seems to be.
yeah, so I can answer that first. So about 18 months ago, there was a bill that was passed allowing projects of this size to generate and supply power back into the grid. Currently, the folks that can benefit from that power are local municipalities, so like the city of Laconia or other cities. It doesn't have to be Laconia, it could be any town around here. You know, there's no specific beneficiary right now because it's still early stage, you know, project. We don't have an agreement with the city yet, but that's how we generate the power and that's who benefits from it. There are talks right now that they're going to open that up to a more community solar base that residents could opt into, and that's typically how other states operate. Maine, Massachusetts, New York, there's residential benefits to it, but currently the state of New Hampshire doesn't allow that.
So we heard this, saying that you said that it could power 1,200 homes. There was, a lady said no, that you're mistaken, it would power 500 homes. Do you want to dispute that?
Yeah, so we run a model on the system that we have here, and I don't have the exact number off the top of my head, but I think it was 8 million kilowatt hours that it will produce per year, which if you just do a search on Google, it's, you know, it's around 1,200 houses. So maybe, so this project is bigger from a DC capacity. So it's 7.5 megawatts DC. And possibly she was looking at 5 megawatts DC because it's 5 megawatts AC. But we run an analysis that tells you how much power estimated it will generate per year. And it's just a calculation based off of that.
Also, that the project was 21 acres and now we're hearing it's 108 acres. What is the project size?
Yeah, so I think maybe the notice just said the parcel is 108 acres, and maybe that was where there was some confusion. But, you know, our application is for the plan that we presented in front of you, which is 21 acres.
There was no previous application that was anything other than this one. And there was a newspaper article that I think people have seen that indicated incorrect facts.
Correct, the use is for 108 acres, but really they're only developing the portion that they've
Correct.
indicated. So the
21.
property itself is 108 total.
Right. But the
Yeah, and
project
it's
itself is
implied in the
21,
article, isn't that what he's saying?
right?
Yes.
That needs to be clear, so. And also, when we talk about, you know, benefit, let's say that it would benefit the city of Laconia. So that means what in terms of energy savings, let's say, for a homeowner? What would you predict? Because we're all hearing about our electricity costs are going up. Would we see any benefit with our
Yeah, I mean,
electricity?
generally for locations that offer residential community solar, it's about 10% reduction in their electric bill. So somewhere, I don't know exact numbers, but somewhere around there, I believe.
If it were not to be used in the community, where would you transmit your electricity to down that power line?
Yeah, I mean, the power just goes back into the grid, right? So it's not like those exact electrons are going to something specific. It just goes back in. There's a meter there that that Eversource reads that tells how much power we've produced, and we need to find off takers. So, like I said, it could be the city of Laconia. It could be, whoever is in Eversource territory. I know there's co-op around here, so I don't want to name other towns, but yeah. So it could be any town or state building, like state-run hospitals and things like that can benefit from the power. So it is staying within the state.
If not necessarily within the community.
Correct.
If there was a study done, because that was asked if there was, how come we haven't seen that? I would have liked to have read it.
That was submitted with their planning board application, not with their zoning board application. So we did not include it with their planning board or their zoning board application, because they are simply here just for the use of the property, and they only need to meet the criteria that's listed for a special exception. But we certainly have it, and we can provide it to the board. That is not a problem. And it is available, like I said, for public view down in the planning department.
I think it would have been helpful personally for me to think about it in terms of the use.
I need to mention that you have an option of delaying for a month, since there's only 4 members tonight. If it's a tie vote, 2-2, you lose, since Richard have to recuse himself, and next month there would be a 5th member. So I just have to give you that option that you could go ahead tonight or defer a month,
Okay, when do we make that decision?
or right now,
Right now?
basically, yeah.
I have another question. That
Sure.
was brought up that you said the solar panels are probably good for 30 years, maybe 35, or our lease is up to 35 years. And then this woman said that, no, your application says it's for perpetuity. So what is it?
Well, I mean, I think our project, our lease with the landowner is for 35 years, so we personally can't do anything after that. We're responsible for removing the system at the end of its life. But I guess that would be a question for you all if we're getting a special exemption. I think that's in perpetuity, I would think,
So
right?
what would happen is after the use has been completed, let's say they remove all their panels, after 2 years of no further use that they were approved for under this special exception, it would revert back to what its intended use is. So in other words, if they disbanded and then 2 years goes by, no other company could just come in and set up shop according to this plan. They have to come back.
And during that period, the trees grow, the deer walks through, the partridge flies.
The beavers.
But,
Yeah, I think it's important to remember, I mean, we talked about other uses, right? You could put a development on here that had all this paving to meet the parking requirement. That's impervious surface, right? You have to deal with the stormwater, that impacts the wetlands. We have to go through a DES process to talk about all these impacts we're talking about for wildlife, potential endangered species. Those searches have been run. You know, things as small as Small World Begonia. We're identifying what the impact is on this parcel already at these early stages, and that has been factored into this design through the previous 6 months as we've revised this design to reduce the impact to the most extent we possibly can. So this is probably the least impactful use of the property in terms of development. So, you know, people can ask that a property is not developed. I think that's an unreasonable ask.
Kevin, I think this is for you, is that the solar panels, I thought they lasted forever.
I mean, they
What
degrade,
happens in 30 years?
so they degrade over time. So each year that they're being used, they produce less and less power.
The glass panel becomes,
Yeah, the cells. I mean, no, they don't like,
turns opaque?
no,
or-
just the cells, the crystalline cells inside the solar panel are less efficient over time.
I see, okay, thank you.
Yeah, and I mean, the question comes up a lot about what do we do with the solar panels? I mean, I'll tell you right now, it's a big talk in the industry to get programs in place to recycle these in 30 years, because as projects, I mean, I've been doing this for 15 years, so there's projects that I built 15 years ago that are coming up halfway through their life cycle. So there's companies that are being formed already that they're looking into recycling solar panels, so they're not just going into a landfill.
Would they reuse the material of the panel to?
Yeah, I mean,
build
it's all aluminum glass, so yeah, they reuse them.
Thank you. Okay.
Is your lease renewable? Or is it 35 years? I'm just curious.
It's
Do they have an option for renewable?
up to 35 years, yes.
Up to
It's an
35 years.
initial, it's an initial 20-year lease with 3 5-year renewal options. So we have the right to not,
But it's not a
Re-
99-year lease.
Correct.
It's not in perpetuity. It's not in continuum forever and ever and ever until.
correct.
that's what I want to make sure.
So if something happens and you don't renew the lease, what happens to all the panels?
We remove them.
You remove them.
Yeah.
There's a decommissioning plan.
Okay, just wondering.
Yep.
And for my own edification, the mounts into the ground, Are they blocks of concrete that it sits into? How does it mount into the?
No, they're either usually in rocky conditions, it's a ground screw, so it looks sort of like a big drywall screw. It's 6 feet tall, and they screw them in the ground. So they're all galvanized steel that then
And
they
it
can
removes
take them
at
out.
the end of the
Yep.
process?
Yeah, they could take them out.
Does that affect groundwater?
No.
We would do geotech analysis as part of the ultimate process before construction to look at the depth of bedrock, things like that. So that's a factor. I mean, they have to meet what's called pull testing, so it has to screw into solid ground.
Alrighty. Thank you, fellas.
Thank you.
Take a seat again. Discussion amongst the board. As Sean said, the solar panel array is probably the least impactful development of any land you could possibly do. I mean, you can't build a campground, a housing development, anything that's gonna have less impact than a solar panel, which is just a screw in the ground holding the panel up in the air. It's only 21 of 108 acres. You know,
And it has a lifetime of 35 years. And that's
max.
the end of it.
Yeah.
Everything out of the ground, everything's back to, you end up with a road in the middle of your wetlands.
So,
Is it true that at the end of 35 years, they have to dismantle it and get the stuff out of there? They can't just walk away and leave it?
That would have to be in their lease agreement with the owner. At the end of the day, too, they could always come back and submit a new site plan to do a new power
they
facility.
could
But at
change
the end of
the
the,
panels for new ones too.
No, I mean, if they continued their lease and they had to change out a panel, but if they decide at the end of 35 years, they're not gonna do this project anymore, and it's gonna be, that it's going to be decommissioned, that stuff is going to be out of there, and that's nothing the city can control, you're saying it's the owner of the land.
the planning board could put a condition on their approval that would require them to remove it.
The 6,000 posts.
The 6,000 panels and their posts.
Yeah.
Can I answer that, or?
Please, Scott.
Can I address that? So a lot of our approvals are conditioned for us to provide a decommissioning bond, a decommissioning plan and bond that would name the city. Usually our lease requires us to do that with the landowner anyways, so we could do it with the landowner or the city, but we could provide the plan and a decommissioning bond as a form of surety. So in the event that I'm not here and nobody's operating this thing, there's money held for somebody to remove the system. So it's pretty typical that it's required. And I think maybe DES might require it anyways, I believe.
Very good, thank you, Kevin. All right, discussion amongst the board.
I've had all my questions answered.
You can see me leaning towards it. I think the neighbors, once this is built, will never know it's there. I don't see the horrible harm to wildlife, 21 acres out of 108
No, I don't.
being used. And as Sean explained, it's the least impactful way to develop a property.
Yep.
And I believe that.
And if we write it in, or it gets noted to planning, that in the decommissioning bond and plan, that it sunsets.
Sure. We can put that in. That's something we can do.
Thank you.
So,
all right.
so if I'm looking at the criteria, then number 5, we would make that statement, that you would want that for number 5.
Yep, I agree.
Why don't you make that statement?
Here, let's see. I would like to grant the special exception for applicant ZB 2025-012 White Oaks Road from Article 5, Section 235-26. The criteria for the special exception is listed on page 134, Article 11. And the 8 criteria are, number 1, the use requested is specifically authorized in this chapter. Yes, it is. Number 2, the request will not create undue traffic congestion or impair pedestrian safety. Obviously, there will be no traffic in a solar farm, and there shouldn't be any pedestrian traffic in a solar farm. Number 3, the requested use will not overload any public water, drainage, or sewer system, or any other municipal system, and there will not be any significant increase in stormwater runoff. Well, obviously you're not going to be needing any public services like schools, fire, maybe police, but anyway, when it comes to the stormwater drainage, that would be addressed at planning board. Let's see. Number 4 is increased demand in police, fire protection, and waste disposal services. Certainly, there shouldn't be any with a solar farm. Number 5, here comes the special provisions part, which should say what?
It would say that at the end of the lease, the 20-year lease with the renewable 5-year options at our 35 years, that the city does hold a decommissioning bond and a decommissioning plan, which will be put into effect upon the end of the lease. And all the materials that are associated with the project shall be removed from the property.
Number 6, the request will not create any hazards to health, safety, or the general welfare of the public. I cannot envision any. Maybe it is an unknown, but at the moment there isn't any evidence to indicate that there will be. Number 7, the proposed location is appropriate. We think that it is probably, given some other alternatives, it probably would be the least impactful for the land. And number 8, the request use is consistent with the spirit and intent of the master plan, and I believe it is. So I think it meets all 8 criteria.
Thank you for your motion, Marcia. Well read.
Yes.
Is there anything we've overlooked?
I will second the motion.
Thank you, Jane. Any further discussion? You want to add any other provisions?
I think Mr. Foote really did a nice addition.
We're good?
All in favor?
Aye.
Enjoy the solar farm.
Thank you.
Thank you, fellas.
Have a nice day.
Oh, boy. That was unpopular.
They have, at the end of the day, they put a bunch of
It's nice to have little
And
kids.
then you would have had school systems, fire, police, yeah.
when they needed people.
And actually, as long as we can get the electricity back here for the city of Laconia, so we all can get a 10% discount.
No,
Yes, sir.
That would be
I
great.
think it's a good project.
I'm Robert White, I live off of White Oaks Road.
Yes, sir.
Brought this up to the airport. No, it's not the Laconia's responsibility,
For the solar panels, you mean?
but yes, the reflection of these solar panels could affect pilot. That's all.
Sure, no.
No, and as an aviation person, I get it, certainly. This goes before planning. There's another spot for input and another spot for those questions. Certainly, we can have the
Did they
airport
name the road
authority
after
weigh
you?
in.
Did they name the road after you?
No, yet further.
I'm sorry.
We still have 2 more applications.
Yes,
Yeah, we do.
No.
I'm letting the room clear out and quiet down. Okay, well, I thought you were gonna get me a gavel.
I had it,
Oh,
and then on the way upstairs, I left it on the planning board car.
Okay, folks,
11 Lewis Road is next.
we did have a lot of opposition to the solar panels. I'm sorry that it went way that it did. No, I'm not sorry. I'm sorry that they were not pleased that it went the way
But
that
you
it
already
did.
have another one happening, right?
I
Two pieces
know,
of
I know,
property
I
over.
know. Okay,
Lewis Road.
You're on the plan.
order
so
in the
you'll
court,
take
please.
Mr.
Order.
Chair,
Yes.
we can bring Richard back up here now.
Oh, Richard.
Yes.
Richard.
Where'd Richard
He
go?
left.
Mr. Bodie, did he leave? Well, he's got his materials here.
No, I think he's still
No,
here.
he didn't leave.
He wouldn't desert us.
Okay.
Richard.
He's talking to some,
Yeah.
Richard's in
Richard.
full.
Now, how is he involved with the solar
His
panel?
property is it, Jane?
He's a
no
direct
butter.
abutter. Yeah.
So that, why would that recluse him from?
Because he has an interest that the property is being developed
in
next
this-
to him.
Well, no, just because you live next door, I don't think that should be reason
He
for.
doesn't live next door, he owns property next door.
He lives right here.
My house is within sight of what they're
He
building.
lives right here.
Well put.
But
I don't know
you
that
still
we-
have an opportunity to talk as a citizen if you wanted to come up and
The
speak.
chairman of the board cut off the community input.
You didn't stand.
Well, no, you could have
Hey,
spoken
I'm gonna take my
as
chance
a
to throw my
resident
arrows.
of the city.
Are we like in
You
a
want
pause?
that?
No.
Just because you're a voting member tonight doesn't mean that you couldn't speak in.
Tyler,
That is
over the
true.
public.
You can speak as an abutter, but you can't sit at the table and
No,
speak
no,
as a
no,
member of the
no.
board. But, yeah.
That's fine.
Okay,
Okay.
we got that
No,
clear.
I understood that. I'm just
All
giving you a
right,
hard time.
moving right along.
He liked
Um,
anyway.
But what did I miss?
11 Lewis Street is seeking a special exception for short-term lodging.
Thing.
Hello, ma'am. Hello. I'll take it that you're Brittany Abba,
Olubody.
Auto Body?
Olubody.
Lovely.
Just how it's spelled. It's
Oh,
it looks confusing,
it looks
but it's
lovely,
not.
it does.
Just give me a
Maybe
sec.
old Bodie, you know, after.
Yeah,
Give me a s- give me a
Olubode.
second.
I get a lot. A little bit of everything.
Tell us how we can help you, Brittany.
So we are obviously looking to do short-term lodging. We just brought the property back in March. We did some work to it. We honestly weren't aware that we needed permitting, so we did rent it for about a month and a half, and then Scott chased me down and said, "You can't do that." So yeah, we do have a property in Franklin, New Hampshire that's also on Airbnb. And yeah, when we bought the property, it was listed as a potential Airbnb, so that's why we bought it. We do spend a lot of time up here. I have a very large family, so we've been up here almost every weekend. It's beautiful up here, so we will still occupy it as well.
Where's your permanent resident?
Haverhill, so we're about an hour away.
And
Hour
you-
15.
how about the home in Franklin? How's that working for you?
It's good. It's great actually. We've
Any
had that one.
issues?
Not really.
Parking, trash, that's our biggest complaint.
No, so parking we have plenty, trash we have plenty. Same here in Laconia, it doesn't. And then I also have a property management company that if I do have overflow of trash, they come pick it up and they dump it for me, because I'm an hour away.
So Franklin is working out well, no
Yes.
issues,
No.
really. Okay. Are there questions from the board members for
I
Brittany?
do have one, and it's my own ignorance, I'm sorry. Lewis Street is located where again?
By O.P.G. Park.
5 minutes from here.
Just go up past O.P.G.
Down
Park
in
and it's
O.P.G., that
just,
little-
it's a little
Mhm.
side
That little
street on the
cove in
right.
there.
All right.
It's right that little roundabout,
It's-
yeah.
Yeah, so it's, O.P.G. Park is here, and here's North Main Street, and there's Lewis, and see her driveway comes way in off of Lewis, so these are houses on Lewis.
Mhm.
Her driveway is this long driveway, and she sits back behind a house.
Mhm.
Is this shorefront?
No.
It is not, no. We're right
What's
behind the
the zone
shorefront.
that this is in?
I believe this is.
I want to say
It's
RS.
RS.
Yes, I believe so,
RS.
RS1.
Yes. This is RS.
In about how many days do you plan, or weeks or months, do you plan on staying there yourself?
Honestly, as often as we can. I do not have a full-time job, and my husband is a nurse. I was born and raised in Methuen, which is right next to Haverhill. We are not city people. We are very much here people. So we come up as often as we can. So 6 months. out of the year we'll probably be up here, obviously sporadically, but
Do you know of any of your neighbors that are doing this?
of my neighbors, I do not, no.
Have you spoken to any of the neighbors to let them know what your plans are and?
I have not.
Back? Okay.
No, I have not. I've only spoken, I have one neighbor that I've spoken to in regards to another issue with security. He thought there were strangers in my yard. But I'm honestly social anxiety, so usually when they are home, I'm there alone or I'm not. Not to say I'm not friendly, I'm just shy.
It's okay to be that way. Okay. Any other questions for Brittany, folks? Have a seat, Brittany, and we have letters from neighbors. I'm gonna ask Tyler to read them.
All right. So I believe this first one is from 1023 North Main. This is, the email states, regarding the variance request at 11 Lewis Street, Laconia, New Hampshire. The location of this property is unusual as it abuts and is centered among 8 different properties, including my own. There has already been many different short-term occupants that have displayed many varied activities, behaviors, and sound levels that are unpredictable and disturbing, such as loud parties and loose pets. Not only does this affect our privacy and property values, but it also sets a precedent that other neighbors could follow. Please do not allow a variance for short-term lodging at 11 Lewis Street in Laconia. This is from Jim Dunlap at 1023 North Main Street, Laconia, New Hampshire.
This is from the other, they're both from the same household.
Aha. So this is from another member of the same household. It says, to Department Planning and Community Development, due to a previous commitment, I cannot attend the public hearing on 9/16/2024. Please do not mistake this for lack of concern regarding the Olubode application seeking a variance to allow for short-term lodging at 11 Lewis Street, Laconia, New Hampshire. This property is surrounded on all sides by 8 different abutters. It has been advertised online to accommodate 12 guests and no limits on pets. Allowing this many people to share a single-family house will surely increase the demand for municipal services like water, sewer, etc. In my opinion, the owners posting on Airbnb clearly made it sound like a party house, boasting that there is a pool table, air hockey table, foosball table, as well as a hot tub. This is very concerning to us as residential abutters. We have to get up and go to work every day, and there has already been a flood of renters for several months with varying levels of noise and activities, even without a variance approval yet. Allowing short-term lodging in this location will affect the desirability and value of the surrounding properties and will contribute to the already lack of affordable housing in Laconia. The effects will not last just a week, a month, or a year, but will last forever in our neighborhood and city. Who among us would choose to buy a home next to a short-term lodging over one without? Very concerned resident, Robin Dunlap at 1023 North Main Street. All right, thank you, Scott. Next one up is from 1035 North Main Street. I'm writing to offer a next-door neighbor's opinion regarding the request to allow short-term lodging at the above-cited property. I have lived on the corner of Lewis Street at 1035 North Main Street since 1996 and currently have 3 school-age children living with me. I have met one of the new owners of 11 Lewis Street, and he seemed nice enough. However, converting the home into an Airbnb is not in the best interest of my own family, and in my opinion, not in the best interest of the other families in the neighborhood. We are a street full of children who ride scooters and bikes, play in their backyards, and shoot baskets in their driveways. The street is quiet by 9 p.m., sometimes earlier. There are seasonal residents on Edgewater Ave who set off fireworks during summer and fall holidays, but other than that, the street is very peaceful and kid-friendly. My concern with short-term residents is noise and recreational drug and alcohol use. The renters will be vacationers free of schedules and responsibilities and unaware of who their neighbors are or what our needs might be. In short, it becomes a party house with all the safety concerns that go along with that. As the owner of the adjacent property, I hope that the request for a variance is denied by the zoning board. We should keep our residential area truly residential. Thank you for your time. Respectfully, Julie Riley at 1035 North Main Street. This one's at 19 Lewis. My name is Jennifer Bako, and I live at 19 Lewis Street. I am writing to ask you to deny the special exception request from the owners of 11 Lewis Street. I believe the property was purchased solely to rent to short-term visitors. The property owners are not residents of Laconia and have purchased this property just to make money. It is a business venture with no regard to the neighborhood. The city has zoned short-term rentals in specific areas for a reason. As stated on the city website, the rules are in place to preserve the traditional character of residential neighborhoods and, more importantly, to help preserve the quality and quantity of the housing stock for year-round residents. As a lifelong resident, I fully understand that we live in a community that thrives because of tourism, but I also believe rules are in place to protect the residents who do live and work here. There is a place for short-term rentals, but I do not think our neighborhood is that place. It is a very quiet area of the city, and it would be nice to keep it that way. Thank you for your time and consideration on this matter. Jennifer Dyer Bako, at 19 Lewis Street. Okay, this one's at 20 Lewis Street. To whom it may concern, I live at 20 Lewis Street. I wish to state that I am against this notice. I do not want an Airbnb in our quiet neighborhood. I myself, like other families, have young children and do not need drunken traffic at all hours of the day. Signed, Benoit Crowell at 20 Lewis Street. And it looks like we've got two more. This is at 13 Lewis Street.
The back letter is the same as the email.
The back letter is the same. Oh, okay. That might be easier to read. So this is 13 Lewis Street. My name is Carly Laurent, owner of 13 Lewis Street. I am writing this letter as I cannot attend the meeting being held on 9/16/24 at 6:30 p.m. in regards to 11 Lewis Street, and the proposal for a special exception to Article 7, 235-41M for short-term lodging. I am asking that the special exception not be approved. I ask for this to not be approved as when my husband, Cale, and I bought our property in 2020, we did so knowing that we were not in short-term lodging zone and could raise our children in a nice, quiet neighborhood. 11 Lewis Street is essentially set in the backyard of my property. I have 3 small children, and I don't feel comfortable with the idea that we could potentially have different people residing at 11 Lewis Street from day to day, week to week. With the rentals that have already happened before getting city approval, applying for this proper exception/permits, we have had to deal with garbage issues. Garbage has sat for weeks at a time. Garbage cans not being pulled in for days, weeks at a time. Garbage cans blocking neighbors' mailboxes, etc. Dog issues, renter's dog getting into my yard, even with a fence surrounding my property, renter's dogs harassing my dogs, etc. As well as ruining the peace of our neighborhood with renters constantly seeking for the property as the property is essentially fishbowled in the backyard of multiple houses and the mailbox isn't properly marked. We've had people knock on our door seeking this property, renters constantly driving up and down the street, etc. If we have already run into these issues with just a few renters in a short amount of time, then what will the future of having short-term lodging at 11 Lewis Street look like? Again, I ask that you do not accept this special exception. In my opinion, the Olubodis have taken away current housing stock for year-round Laconia residents who are dealing with a severe housing crisis and have purchased this property solely for their own personal financial gains. As stated in 235-41M, approving the special exception for short-term lodging would take away the traditional character of our residential neighborhood. If you would like to hear more of my concerns about the possibility of having a short-term lodging at 11 Lewis Street, they provide their information for us to contact them. Thank you for this time. Carly and Cale Lauren, 13 Lewis Street. And that is
Well read, Tyler, thank you.
Well done.
Can I ask a question, Tyler?
Sure.
What do we consider short-term rental? What's the definition of that?
I believe it's 14 days or less.
14 days or less.
Correct.
But 6 months is,
Considered long-term by the city's definitions.
what is the shortest long-term?
15 days. So,
That's good.
Okay, excuse me. I have to ask now if there's any residents or neighbors that would like to come up and speak about the matter. Excuse me. Hello, ma'am.
Hello. My name's Carol Varney. I live at 58 Edgewater Ave.
Varney?
Varney, V as in Victor, A-R-N-E-Y. My husband David and I live at 58 Edgewater Ave. The back of our property abuts the back of this property. It's a very, if you've ever driven down, or you've ever been in the Runaway Pumpkin walk or race, you've actually gone down Edgewater Ave. It's a very popular street, very quiet street. There's just a few houses that are on this street, and then it's the lakefront. So it's a very scenic street. And so a lot of people, it's used for a lot of fundraising, running races or walkathons. And it's also used by a lot of the kids in the neighborhood that are on Lewis Street or even over at Blueberry Lane. I remember seeing this little girl and her mom, she was trying to do a scooter down North Main Street. And I said, and you know, the cars were, she was almost going off the sidewalk. And I told her, come down Lewis Street and go on to Edgewater Ave because it's very quiet and there's not a lot of traffic. However, and I should back up, I'm really glad that we're having this meeting now. I'm just a little sad and just disappointed that we weren't having it 6 months ago when I first talked to Scott to find out if they had gotten the right approvals for this, because as an abutter, I hadn't received any notice. However, in retrospect, having this meeting now has actually given us, all of us neighbors, a taste of what it's been like to have an Airbnb in our backyard. And let me tell you, it's not been sweet. It's not been a sweet taste. It's a very condensed neighborhood, and this piece of property is very unique. If you look at it in the paperwork, it is landlocked. It's got, you know, houses all around it. My husband and I actually, when it went for sale, we thought, well, maybe we should buy it because then we could, like, you know, it would rent it out, but we'd have some control over who was in there. We would not rent it out short term. This neighborhood is not conducive to short-term rentals, at least not that piece of property. Maybe something on Edgewater Ave, I hope not, but this property is being marketed on Airbnb, maybe not now, but it was when I called Scott. It's being marketed as Lake Oasis 2. Lake Oasis. So when you hear Lake Oasis, what are you expecting? A lake, right? They might have had a lake view. The previous owners had a lake view until we put up a 2-car garage. And that took care of most of it. They have a peekaboo lake view off the corner of our garage. So there's a number of concerns, and one of the concerns I have is, first is that she didn't go through the right approvals to begin with. Makes me concerned that, you know, I'm a rule-following person. I have always been a rule-following person. And when I come up against people who just ignore the rules and just proceed until apprehended, it makes me suspect of what else they're going to do without abiding by the rules. Are they just going to continue to proceed until apprehended on this item or that item? Who knows? So, anyways, there's a couple of things that I wanted to point out. The part about the safety of the people involved, it's been mentioned already that Edgewater Ave is a very popular spot for kids learning, well, actually Lewis Street is, but more so Edgewater Ave, because it's flat, it's straight, and it's beautiful. People go by, they walk by there, there's elderly walking by there, that's very popular with seniors, it's very popular with families, it's very popular with little kids that are learning to ride bikes, very popular with dog walkers. And lately, because we've had this opportunity to experience our first summer, hopefully our last, with Airbnb, we've noticed very much an increase in traffic. And having transient traffic coming through there on a week-by-week basis, mostly it's been weekends. I have noticed, maybe Brittany's family has been up there 2 weekends, I've noticed, like big family. Memorial Day weekend, Labor Day weekend. So these long weekends, not even 4th of July. I mean, we notice, you can tell who's not from this area and who is like feeling out the area. It's definitely tourists that have been coming in. But what we've noticed is the increase in traffic going down Edgewater Ave or going opposite way at a higher rate speed than the neighbors do, because the neighbors know what that street is like, or the people that are just coming by to take in the view. You know, some people will stop and take pictures. These people are just going to get to the end of the road. So it's, you know, it's very tempted me to just try to put up some speed limit signs. But anyway, so the walking issue and the safety of the kids and the people that are walking along there is jeopardized. The other issue I have is more personal. We have the oldest house on that street. Our house and our barn was built in 1850. Their house, their backyard, again, abuts up to our backyard. Our barn is not too far from the property line. There's some trees and some bushes, and they have a fire pit that is right, it's fairly close. I'm hoping that they got a permit for that fire pit, because I know we need a permit just to have a fire pit on our lakefront. So I hope they have their fire pit. But that permit, that fire pit is located near bushes, actually underneath some trees. And when I smell smoke, I literally be the nosy neighbor, because it's my butt that's on the line if something happens. And I go around and I look and see, how are they maintaining that fire pit? Is it a huge bonfire that's going on, or is it a small fire pit? I want to be able to sleep at night and know that my barn is not going to be on fire because some leaves or trees caught on fire, or these people partied all night and went to bed and didn't put out the fire. How do I know they are taking any responsibility for this fire pit? People who own the property, who live there, all the residents around, we all have fire pits, but it's our property, and we take responsibility for it. We care about it. We're not there just to have a good time and be gone and never be seen again. So the fire pit, the people who owned the property before, they did have a fire pit there, the previous family, and occasionally that woman's family would come up and use it. They had it over at a different location, which was in a much safer location. It wasn't as close to bushes and trees where it could spread. So I think, the community benefit, I don't see a community benefit at this location. Maybe somewhere where it's going to attract, more people coming back. When people come to this lake oasis and find out what it really is, I don't think there's going to be a lot of repeat people coming back. There's always going to be new transient people until they find out. It's like, whoa. So the property, in my opinion, would better serve the community by being marketed for what it really is and what it was truly meant to be, a single-family home. It would make a great starter home. It would make a great retirement home. And that's exactly what people in this community are looking for. And I would urge the board to take a very critical look at these applications that come in for short-term lodging and look at them and say, are we helping just fill the wallets of out-of-state people, or are we helping the community by helping to provide more homes? These homes are being eaten up by out-of-state people who want to run them as a business. My neighborhood was not set up to house a hotel. I don't care if it's for 6 people or 12 people. That's what a short-term rental is. It's a hotel, and it's a hotel that is not managed or supervised by anybody except the neighbors. So I would urge you to vote this down, preserve that neighborhood for what it is and what it has been. It's a wonderful neighborhood for kids. It's a walk to Pleasant Street School. It's a walk to Memorial Middle School. We don't need transient people coming through. There's too many kids. There's too many things that could happen. So renting, this property would better serve the community if it was just rented on a full-time basis, just to one family, or it was sold as a starter home or a retirement home, and not be taken off the rolls of housing, and that's what this community needs, and that's what you people can do to help them. And thank you for
Thank you for your comments, Carol. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Camille Bailey. I live at 26 Lewis. I've been in the neighborhood probably the longest, over 30 years. It's a quiet neighborhood, very considerate neighbors to each other, and I just don't feel that short-term rentals are going to be a fit for the neighborhood at all. It's just a matter of time before it happens like it did on Old North Main, and then it's too late to deal with it. So I don't think it should go through. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bailey.
Hi, my name's Jennifer Bako. You read my letter already. I just want to reiterate that, like Mrs. Varney, everyone else has said, it's just a quiet neighborhood. There's a lot of kids. It used to be more older people, and in the past 4 or 5 years, it's all kids now. They're everywhere. And, on the weekends when the renters are trying to find the house, they're up and down the street 3 or 4 times trying to find the driveway, and it's just, it's uncomfortable, I guess is the word. The property is literally in a fishbowl. Everyone around, everyone knows when there's strangers in the backyard, basically. So I just wanted to reiterate that. Thank you.
Okay, Jennifer.
Oops.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi there, my name's Karen Vliet, and my wife and I live at 1017 North Main Street. And we're talking about a fishbowl here. I want to kind of describe it from my point of view. We're talking about the end of that block that's from the railroad, not the railroad, the electric wires are right beside my house. And then there's me and the Dunlaps and 2 or 3 other people. I'm the old lady that's walking my dog around the neighborhood, by the way. And then there's, the houses here, the houses on Lewis Street, the nice street by the lake. And the house we're talking about, I have an acre of land, and I think I'm the only one in that particular area that does. And the back half of my lot is a wetland. And this house comes in a little private driveway, and it's like where the other half acre of whoever let it go years ago, the Dunlaps, that house is right there. So it's it's in the middle. It's just in the middle. I've had trouble with, I have a 100-pound boxer and a 10-pound Yorkie, and I have a fenced yard. And when they're out there and there's people at that house, this big old, what are those black and brown dogs? The very big old things look like a St. Bernard, comes up and is trying to get in the fence into my backyard. I also worry about the wetland area because it isn't fenced, because I can't afford to fence it. And I've seen people back in there picking up whatever, balls that kids have thrown back there. And I just, we're retired people. We're coming to the end of our lives, and we bought a place because it was in a nice, quiet neighborhood, other than the traffic, which you can grow to not hear. And that's why I would like you to turn down this request. Thank you.
Thank you for coming up, Karen. Is there anybody else? Apparently not. Okay. Discussion amongst the board.
So it is a unique piece of property, and it's, right in that lollipop thing. In listening to my opinion, listening to all the concerns there and all the concerns in the public, all of them are addressed in the requirements for the permit, every single one of them. And if the community, if anybody has, if there's a problem with anything, they address it, and then the permit can be taken away. But everything that the people have spoken of is addressed in the permit requirements. But I would say it is a unique property. I mean, as you read and as the folks spoke, I'm making up pin dots all the way around. Almost every home has been represented either here or there. And it looks like, and just going back in the property records, it looks like probably somebody lived there for a long period of time. Probably they passed away or something, and then they had to buy it out of an estate. And then the applicant bought it from the estate. So I think it was owned by a person for a long period of time. So there's some details for the board to consider.
Okay. My views are, it's your property. As long as laws aren't being broken, you have a right to rent it out for half an hour if you want to.
Yep.
But it has to be done responsibly. We have 9 people up here saying no. Nobody's saying
It has not been
yes.
done responsibly, right?
And apparently it was rented earlier this summer, and there were some issues which possibly can be corrected.
So the applicant purchased the property in February of this year.
I don't think it should be a barren if the person lives in Laconia Belmont or Haverhill. It's their property and they have a right to do with it as they see fit. If they meet the conditions of the city's requirements, they're not gonna live in it for more than 150 days a year, so they need the special exception. Or variance, is it?
It's a special
exception.
exception.
Special exception,
Alright.
because it is.
And it's
large.
not owner occupied.
And we've been through this in other communities where people didn't want the transient residents. Certainly, and I see SPOD here, and just on the other side is RS. Is this actually RS?
It is RS.
Right, and that's like the big Mojo one, and it's right in the middle of a small, tight community. Let's see, when did we build this thing? Back in the mid-80s?
Built in 86.
86, yep. So someone was able to put on that. I do believe that it is a residential neighborhood. I do believe that it could better serve the community as being rented, where a kid could live in the neighborhood and go to the school, go to Opeachy Park. I think that's what, since the mid-80s, this building has provided for someone. And I think really just, and we've seen it in more than one spot, just to have people say, I can afford that, I'm gonna buy that up, and I'm gonna rent it out, and I don't live there, so what do I care? This is a neighborhood, this is RS, this is where the kid takes his bicycle and the dog and rides down to Opeachy Park and goes to the ball game and runs at the track. None of those short-term rentals care about that. They don't have access down to the lake, and so what entertainment goes on is fairly predictable. I don't think I can support this as a short-term rental.
And Richard, brings up the point that, well, there are provisions, in the application where problems can be addressed, but I find that they're not addressed by the city. I don't find that the city does a good job of enforcing those requirements, and then the neighbors end up being the policemen. And I also believe this is a single residential neighborhood. People buy into it, knowing that that's what the environment is, and I agree with Mike that our city would be better served selling that as a single property for somebody, or renting it out long-term to a family to help with our housing situation. I am not in favor of this.
I'm just in favor. A person who owns a piece of property has a right to do whatever they want with it. That's kind of my baseline. And if any, not to be callous, but if, when it came for sale, any of these neighbors could have bought it if they wanted to protect their.
But no one would expect it.
Now,
to
that's a fair
be-
point.
No one would
fair point,
expect
Mike.
it to be a short-term rental
Because it's not
allowed.
That's
Bingo.
that's a fair point. Actually, that's a really fair point.
So if you're looking to make some money,
Yeah,
go buy some property in the Weirs.
it's a fair point, fair point. I'm curious, and I don't know if it would be, if the applicant knew of any of this. I think that this short-term, it almost doesn't matter.
I have been told that ignorance of the law is no excuse for breaking the law.
That's a fair point.
Directly.
I agree.
And I would say that the unique location of that, it's a lollipop, and that, this house is the Tootsie Roll center of the Tootsie Pop. And if the board's inclination was to approve it, I think that one of the stipulations I would put in there is there could be no dogs, because it seems like many of the neighbors have dogs, and that's.
Not anti-dog.
Yeah.
No, I'm not even going there.
Yeah, fair point. No,
Well, I won't be making a motion, so you'll have to look somewhere else.
Well, I'm gonna agree with you, so.
Well, it seems there's a split decision here.
Well, we gotta throw it down, throw the bones down.
Short-term rentals are good for the city.
That's an expression.
They bring new people to the city to enjoy what we all have become accustomed to as being normal. We have a unique area here. It's reliant on tourists because it's a beautiful place and tourists make it happen. If you have no place for tourists to stay, it's not gonna happen. People don't have,
There's nice hotels.
Exactly.
There is the Weirs, there are plenty of,
There are plenty of
there are
places.
plenty of places to rent around here. I just don't think that the highest and best use of this particular piece of property within an established neighborhood is to rent it out for a revolving door of recreational guests.
well, you should make a motion to deny.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to deny ZB 2025013 for 11 Lewis Street. The proposal has come forward to present this as a short-term property rental. This is a special exception from Article 23570C2. Short-term lodging may be allowed by special exception by the zoning board of adjustment if the board determines the use as requested is specifically authorized in the chapter. And for RS, it's not. The requested use will not increase demand for municipal services. Well, I would judge that just having a wider variety of people who aren't established or a part of the neighborhood puts the neighborhood at risk. And so in that, if you have to call the nice policeman or have the garbage picked up, these are things that do affect quality of life in the neighborhood. Any special provisions for the use set forth in the chapter are fulfilled. No, the use is not permitted in RS. The requested use will not create hazards to health, safety, or general welfare of the public. Well, it does increase the amount of traffic through the neighborhood, and increased traffic via either vehicular, canine, or people who aren't tied or bonded to the neighborhood does create risk for the neighborhood. And the requested use will not create hazards, so, did I just say that? Yes, so I do that. And the applicant can demonstrate that the use in question has been common practice at this specific property and structure for a period of not less than 5 years prior to the enactment of the short-term lodging ordinance, and that is not true. That hasn't been held that way before. And we are, after listening to the input from the neighborhood, we can see that this is not necessarily going to create a community benefit. So for those reasons there, I move to deny this request.
Thank you for your motion.
Second.
Thank you, Marcia. Any further discussion? Once again, I just want to say that I am pro short-term rental. I see that the neighborhood is all up in arms against it. And
So I have a motion to deny.
that's the way.
Yep.
Any further discussion?
No?
All in favor of the motion to deny
Aye?
and opposed? The motion
Passes.
passes to deny 3-2.
Yep.
Thank you all for your concern. I'm sorry, Brittany.
I just want to apologize because I was not aware of these rules
And this
Last
is-
but not least.
This isn't gonna be easy either, I don't think.
No. We get paid well for this.
Yes, you do, handsomely.
Next
Folks double our wages.
on our agenda, 2623 Parade Road. They're
this
seeking a
is-
variance to allow indoor and outdoor storage.
Yeah, and it's fun.
Hello, sir.
Hi there. Ron Paulsgrove, General Manager of Pedal Pushers Farm. And Pedal Pushers Farm has been in my wife's family for 29 years. My wife's originally from Meredith. I'm originally from Ohio. We met in college and moved to Florida for 23 years and decided to move back. Some of you may know Pedal Pushers was for sale several years ago. It is my intention to try and keep it in the family for another 29 years. And part of my request this evening is some of the things that I'm trying to accomplish by coming on board last April and trying to use the property to our benefit. So I'm seeking a variance requested in Article 235, Section Attachment 2, Table 1 for a variance on the indoor and outdoor storage. Just to answer some of the questions, or all of the questions, granting the variance would not be contrary to the public's interest because all storage would be in our existing building and around our garden center, which we already store equipment and vehicles during our off-season. There'd be no expansion plans and no additional daily traffic in or around the property. Would not be after hours accessible, would be only during our current business hours, and mostly for the off-season. So in the picture that I have circled, where we'd be doing the inside storage, if any of you have been to Pedal Pushers, we hope you have been, it's where we have the antiques at currently. The antiques we want to keep. We want to keep that part of our business, but we just want to utilize it more efficiently during the off-season to store recreational vehicles or cars or boats inside that building. Number two, if the variance were granted, the spirit of the ordinance would be observed because it would give our business new growth opportunities to help us earn income year-round in a tough economy or even a good economy. It would also provide a benefit to local residents who would not have the means to store recreational vehicles on their property. Number three, granting the variance would do substantial justice because the lack of income through the winter months has made it more of a challenge for pedal pushers to be profitable. And granting this ordinance would not only be helpful to our business, but it would also benefit the community as well, giving more storage opportunities during those winter months at a reasonable rate. Number four, the variance were granted. The values of the surrounding properties would not be diminished because our core business would not be changing. We would still be remaining a garden center. We did get back out doing landscaping over the last year. So I'm trying to find different avenues of business to make the business sustainable. And again, a family-owned and operated business for 29 years. We're trying to keep it that way. So that's not going to change. We've got a food truck on property that if y'all haven't tried, you should stop by and try sometime. Got a really good smash burger. Just a quick plug for that. So we'd be utilizing the property structures in place that we already have, and there'd be no impact on the level of traffic or noise on or around the property. Because like I said, it would be only during our current business hours. Then number five, unnecessary hardship. So A, it would be a loss of income or income that we wouldn't be able to gain during the off-season. We still have expenses, property taxes to cover during this time. I would be, we are a seasonal business without the stream of income during the winter months. That's why we're looking to do this. And double I would be, we are a seasonal business with year-round expenses and are only looking for low-impact ways to supplement our business in the off months that would benefit our current customers and potentially get us some new customers. So that's why we're currently asking for this variance, and I appreciate your time this evening, and I appreciate your
consideration for this. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Stay up here, Ron. We gotta ask you some questions.
Yep.
First, I wanna thank you for letting the snowmobile trails go through your property. I'm curious as to the outside storage being up near the road. Couldn't it be down and back by the greenhouses instead?
Yes, absolutely could be. We currently have compost that's back there right now, but it's probably an area that I should have marked for potential storage in the future, because we are getting that compost narrowed down, so there is some area that would be accessible down there for us to store. And the reason that I noted the two top spaces are those are areas where we, during the winter months, we store our trucks and a camper anyway, so, yeah. Is there a setback that we should follow if we were able to do it? We would definitely do that.
There's more to the story. It's like if we grant this tonight, you could in the future build those orange metal buildings right up, you know, so when you're driving down Parade Road, instead of seeing a nice garden center, you see these orange, come store your junk in
Well, there's
our spot there.
RR2, so there is some setback, but
You know, so.
Would not be our
Let-
intention,
let's-
but I do see that it.
My biggest concern is taking away from the pretty garden center that you drive by and seeing orange metal buildings that are nothing but garage doors and, you know.
Certainly, yeah.
And that is a possibility in the future. And you're showing outside storage being up close to the road, which I understand storing your own equipment there is fine. But I would hate to drive by and see 30 boats with the white plastic tarps on them, you know, lining Parade Road. That's just my opinion, and opinion of some others I spoke about this with. I don't know if we have some questions from the board members that would like to talk with Ron?
This would be strictly in the winter,
Correct.
correct?
But once it's in the winter, it's allowed in the summer. It's not a seasonal thing.
Right.
Once you
That's
let,
what I'm
once
concerned.
you open the barn door
The cow gets
To-
out.
to storage on RR2, which is RR2 for a reason, because we like the bucolic look of our,
Let's get him to sit
Humidity up
down.
there.
Let's get him to sit down so we can talk about this.
or let's get some
Let's ask some
input.
questions
Okay,
before he sits down. Any other questions, Marcia?
So I'm just being clear here that you want to enhance your business by letting people store their boats in the winter, their cars in the winter that are, you know, that are seasonal. What other things are you planning on storing up there?
So it would only be boats. It would be boats, RV or ATV possibly inside, ski-doos, things like that inside the Antique Emporium. That then eventually in the springtime, we would open the Antique Emporium back up and utilize that for
And
sure.
would you consider also expanding your indoor storage by building, as he was saying, more sheds to store things inside?
I don't currently have plans, but like you said, if it was granted, then, it may be something if it works out for us and we're able to sustain the business by having the extra income during the winter months that down back, maybe we would pursue that in the future. I can't say I wouldn't. From a business mind, I may.
Thank you.
Do you
Yep.
have a provision for, say, someone stored their RV and then they just fell off the face of the earth and they never pick it up? What are you gonna do with it?
So that would all be in the contract. We'd have that written up by the lawyers, and that would all be in the contract, and we would gain ownership of that after a period of time, and it would be ours, and we'd be able to get rid of it at our disposal.
So for a
Could
period,
Airbnb it.
but for a period of time, I mean, that could
Put a
be for
solar
the whole
farm on top
summer
of
where
it.
they're
No,
gonna
it's
have to
RR2,
still
I'm
be
sorry.
there.
I like to.
Put some solar panels on it.
All right.
Fish might land on it, or the birds.
Let's get
But
into
I
this.
have a passion for the garden center, and I have a passion for what Pat and Patty have built there, and my sole intention is to make sure that the business stays in the family and stays operational, like I said, for another 29 years, and this is just a means of us to be able to keep doing that. So I appreciate your consideration.
One more question, Ron. the greenhouses in the back, do you plow between them in the winter?
Absolutely,
and all
yes, we
that?
do. Yes, we
So
do.
you have access there?
Yes.
Okay. Now, do you run those greenhouses in the winter, or would they be storage?
We start in February with the greenhouses.
Okay. You actually heat them and start seeds?
We do.
Seeds
Yes.
up, okay. All right, have a seat for a moment, Ron, and we'll discuss it amongst ourselves.
Public hearing.
Oh, I'm sorry. There's only reporters here. Anybody from the public would like to speak about this matter? Okay, nobody wants to take it. Like Mike was saying, my biggest concern is all of a sudden it turns into a rental storage facility instead of a nice farm stand.
Does the city make a difference between boat storage and any other kind of storage? Because I know boat storage is a big deal here in the city. So does the city make a different designation? Like boat in our, like a trailered boat in RV and anything else? Because there seems to be a wide tent to say a multi-use building that has the 5x10s and the 6x10s and the 10x20s.
Sure. So, for our table of permitted uses, we do have watercraft long-term storage under water-related dependent uses, and that is not approved in any of the residential zones, as not permitted.
Not permitted without exception or variance?
You would need a variance
We
for
would
that.
need a variance,
Yep,
got it,
yep.
understood.
And then, we do have, give me 1 second, I'm going through it here. We do have, vehicle storage long-term, and that is also not permitted, so they would need a variance for that as well. And then we also just have the general, indoor self-storage. And that, give me 1 second here, I believe is not permitted in any of the residential districts.
Okay, so either way, with his application as written, he's asking for outdoor storage and indoor. That's gonna be two separate variances. So is he here tonight for two variances or just one?
So you can, the way you fill out your application, you can have it to be separate applications, so you can
Okay.
do each variance independently, or you can combine them together.
Okay.
That is the applicant's choice to do that. At the end of the day, the outdoor storage, I will say, would be, give me 1 second here. Okay, so outdoor storage is not permitted by right as a non-residential accessory use either. So even if it's just an accessory use for him to store it.
Okay, gotcha, right. Also, does that make, does zoning make a designation? So, for example, if somebody says, I want to have outdoor storage, does zoning say it has to be a marked place? Or he's got I'm just looking at
Has
me.
to be beside or behind the residence.
Okay. Yes?
On a commercial, you need to do a site plan anyway.
Understood.
So
Correct.
It would be on, but
Okay.
you're right as well, Mike, on a residential, it would be in the location you
Okay,
mentioned.
cool,
Yeah.
cool. So we've got a lot of issues with this right here, so I'm just saying that. My thinking about this is that RR2, we've got 3 RR2 roads in the city. And we have them that way for a reason. You know, we're trying to keep a bunch of the Marshmallow Farm, for sure. Is there something that we can grant? But I also.
I think it really is a case of once you do this, and we do provide
Agree.
places in town that are available for storage. There are a number of either the industrial park or the stuff on whatever this is up here, Opportunity Drive or whatever.
Sure. And
Growth, whatever.
And we've got a pre-existing non-conforming business. A business is in an RR2. Well, the RR2 was added after the business was in place, so, right.
The RR2 zone has a description where we're trying to keep that land historic, scenic, and agricultural. That's the goal. And doing this does not abide by that description. That's why it's a no, for a very good reason.
Spirit of the ordinance,
Right.
right.
And also, and I agree with Mike, once you open up the barn door and you grant that exception, then you get somebody down the road wanting to do the same thing with their property because you've done it here. And you can have what is called a cumulative effect.
Oh, sure.
And that is something that needs to be considered as well.
In our decision tonight.
And-
Closer than cumulative.
Thank you, a corrosive cumulative effect. And for those reasons, because it is not in keeping with the description of an RR2 zone, and it is no, and there is a possibility of a very negative effect, I am not in favor.
How about we grant him inside storage for the big barn, and any future inside storage would be, I mean, he has almost 10 acres of land there down behind the greenhouses, so they're not visible from the road.
I think you're making an excuse to,
He'd still be opening the barn door.
I was
Yeah.
gonna say, you can't place a caveat like that, once you grant the variance. You're granting the variance for the use. So you were
Right.
granting the variance for the use of the entire property.
The planning board would be the one to
If
make
all the vehicles are
stipulations.
registered, does that still fall under the category of storage? If there is a boat sitting, no, I'm asking, if a boat is sitting on a current registered trailer, or an RV has a current registered, is that, I'm asking, I don't know this answer.
Sure. So, obviously, every situation's unique. In that situation, if somebody was looking to store a boat, like on this property, on a registered trailer, and it was not the owner's boat, then that would be considered indoor
Okay.
self-storage.
Right, fair point. That's the.
So he
okay.
could store his own boat on the
Sure,
property,
understood.
but
That's it.
How do we help these people out?
I can appreciate the entrepreneurial spirit, trying to find a way to keep it going.
Nice
have to
gig,
help
right?
everybody.
Big old building.
I thought
Well-
about
Alright.
that for educational
I'm willing
purposes
to, I'm
for
willing to set up
kids.
and play.
All right,
I make a motion that we deny ZB 2025-014 for indoor and outdoor storage at 2623 Parade Road in the RR2 zone. We're looking for, this was looking for a variance from Article 235, Section 2, Table 1. Granting the variance would be contrary to the public interest because we are looking at some of our most protected areas because of the history of our rural being. We do provide within the community areas where storage can be developed. This just is not the right spot. If the variance were granted, the spirit of the ordinance would be observed, it would not be observed. We would be just going against this. The substantial justice is merely pecuniary and making an understanding, and it's because this is farm and RR2, this is residential areas. This is a unique piece of property in that it's a business in the RR2, which is an anomaly. But for Pat and Pat's good work, certainly they've done a great job for 29 years on this. Hopefully we can come up with some better ideas. I just hope we would have a better idea than storage. There is no unnecessary hardship. The property that distinguishes it from other properties is it's already an outlier. And it is not necessarily a reasonable request because we can see it's dependent on adding more storage to create a better model for economic flow. And that's merely for the property owner. Is there anything I've missed here?
No, hardship has to go with the property and not the financial
Right, hardship
impact.
with the
It's
property.
With the property, and there is none. He can still conduct his business. Business can still be conducted.
Correct. So thusly forth, my reasoning.
So we have a motion by Mike Foot to deny the variance,
I second it.
seconded. Any further discussion? I would like to find a way to help this man by letting him use the big building for storage. That sits empty all winter, but
We can't.
that being said, all in favor of denying the variance?
Right.
I'll abstain.
There you go.
4-0. I'm sorry, Ron.
Thank you for your time and consideration, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Sorry for making you wait through the whole meeting for this.
Ever get a beat after this again?
All right.
But we're not here to feel guilty.
What's next on our agenda?
Whoops.
Adjourn.
Should be,
Any new business?
Motion to adjourn.
Sure there's no more
Second.
old business, new business?
All in favor?